Amon-Ra St. Brown getting disrespected by ESPN. We're going to talk about it here. I don't understand why this guy does not get the recognition that he deserves as a wide receiver and a talent that he brings his football team. He's been outstanding since being drafted by Detroit a couple years ago, and ESPN continues to disrespect him and the Lions with some of their top 10 wide receivers that they have been doing there. So we're going to go over this. We're going to talk about it and break it down because, if ESPN and the big media don't want to give love to St. Brown, I sure as hell am going to do that because he is well deserving of the accolades that he's not receiving. He is a very good wide receiver and one to be giving some love for going forward. And hopefully after this season, the disrespects end for St. Brown and he gets the love that he needs. Let's get this thing going. NFL season's almost here, folks. You want to hit that notification bell, subscribe to the channel because we're going to be dropping a lot of content on here. We're going to have player interviews. We're going to have former players. It's really going to go up a notch on Lions Nation Unite, and that's fantastic for the channel as you as well, the viewer. This thing is going up a notch and a half for sure, and you're going to get the content that you so well deserved. So in this, we're going to be talking about St. Brown disrespect here. ESPN, they did their wide receiver rankings here, and he was snubbed, not voted one of the best 10 wideouts in the NFL, as well as not getting love even in honorable mentions, and why I think this is absolutely ridiculous. First off, being drafted by the Detroit Lions, St. Brown has been a player since day one. The guy has done everything for this offense. He's made this offense. Him and Jared Goff has made this offense. And without St. Brown, Lions offense wouldn't be what it is today. Now, week one, when he was a rookie, he didn't come out and blow it up. But halfway through the season, he really developed into the Lions' number one wide receiver and one of the best offense in all football. He's the number one receiver and one of the best offense of all football, top five offense in my opinion. And he gets no accolades. Now, he did get an alternate Pro Bowl last year, as well deserved. He should be, so I do appreciate that. And he won the wide receiver competition because that's St. Brown. St. Brown is not the biggest receiver. He's not the strongest receiver. He's not the fastest receiver. He's not something where you see this guy is an elite. All he is just great all around. He is magnificent in his route tree. He's got fantastic hands. Anything that comes to his way, he catches. He's a very physical wide receiver. He loves to fight against the DB and take the hits. He's a healthy guy, and he is a player who trains as one of the best. Not saying he's Jerry Rice at all. Jerry Rice, the greatest receiver up there of all time. You get Randy Moss and Calvin Johnsons and all those guys. But Jerry Rice was one of those players that wasn't elite in many aspects of his game. He was just a player that did everything so good and he trained so well that he became the best receiver, in my opinion, of all time. Look at St. Brown, what he's done. Over 1,000 yards receiving consistently. Even when the Lions were bad year one under Dan Campbell, he was consistently making plays, winning football games, the winning catch, and on the field 24/7. We've seen it. We love St. Brown here in Detroit. Anybody that is a Lions fan knows what I'm talking about. And if you're not a Lions fan watching this, you really need to look at St. Brown as one of the top 10 wide receivers in the NFL. Is he top 5? No, I'm not going to say that. He doesn't have the speed of Tyreek Hill. He doesn't have the multi-dimensional of a Deebo Samuel. These receivers you look at like a Jamar Chase, that's just absolutely outstanding. But he's a top 10 in my opinion, for sure, for what he brings to the Detroit Lions. And not even being an honorable mention in the ESPN's wide receivers is ridiculous. They did Deebo Samuel, and I agree. Mike Evans is not Mike Evans what he used to be, in my opinion. I would put St. Brown above him right now. T. Higgins is really good as well. I don't have a problem there. Garrett Wilson, to have Garrett Wilson above St. Brown right now is ludicrous in my opinion and doesn't make a lot of sense. Jaylen Waddle as well, really fast. He did really good, but he's an injury-prone player. We've seen it last year. And DeVonta Smith, he's an elite speed. But in my opinion, I will take St. Brown over those guys right now. St. Brown's, the reason, in my opinion, he gets disrespected is because he's not the biggest guy in the world, right? He's not the guy that you say, okay, this is DK Metcalf. Okay, this is Calvin Johnson. Okay, this is Randy Moss. He doesn't have that size to him or even stature, physical trait. And so by having that, they knock him down, and that's why he fell to the Detroit Lions in round 4 a couple years ago. Sophomore campaign, he averaged 5.1 yards after the catch, ranked at 14. He does remind you of a Golden Tate type of player, and Golden Tate was a really good player for Seattle and Detroit, and to me was one of those guys that's underrated because St. Brown is not the guy who gets the biggest catches downrange, the 50-yard catches. He is a phenomenal player in the middle and wherever the football is. He's just that great. He had over almost 1,200 yards receiving. But his continued to disrespect due to the fact of his size and his stature is utterly ridiculous, and this is something that's got to change in the NFL. I could care less how big you are. Do I prefer the bigger receivers? Yeah, in general. But if a guy is elite and he catches everything, I will take the shorter, smaller guy who I can rely on over a guy who's just got size who you cannot rely on. You look at Khalif Raymond. The guy is tiny, but you can rely on him. St. Brown, the guy's not the biggest guy in the world, but you can rely on him. Golden Tate, he was not the biggest guy in the world, but you rely on him. Wes Welkers of the world, these wide receivers out there that has been getting it done throughout their whole career, just because they're not the size that you would expect or the speed that you covet does not mean they're not a good wide receiver. And St. Brown, with all the stats, with everything that he brings on game day and his availability and his big catch and contested catch and yak and everything part of his game, he absolutely, in my opinion, is a top 10 wide receiver. And if you don't believe he's a top 10, well, he should be an honorable mention. Absolutely no doubt about it. If he was on a team, say, like the Rams, or a team that is shown more, I think, to the public, he would probably be in this consideration. A team that maybe, like the Dallas Cowboys, he would be in this consideration. I think the Lions are starting to change the course, obviously, how the NFL looks at them as well as fan bases throughout the NFL. We're becoming a more popular team. But if he was on there, he would be in consideration right now. He would be in the honorable mentions. And I think it's a sad case where just because you're on a team or you're not your size, we're not going to give you the appreciation you should have in what you bring in part of your game. I think you should. I don't think it should matter on anything else what you bring on the field. I really, really do. I think that's important. And what he brings to this football team. And with the amount of yards he got last year from Jared Goff, and considering the fact the Lions have a ton of weapons, it just shows you if we didn't have a ton of weapons, he'd have his numbers would be above there. But since Jared Goff's a guy who distributes the football to multiple people, he's not going to have that. But St. Brown, make no mistake about it, is one of the best receivers in the NFL. And I am happy he's a Detroit Lion. And I am happy that he was drafted by the Lions in round 4, and all these teams passed on him multiple times. Because what he brings to the game is hard to replicate. And that's work ethic, training hard, beating all adversity that's coming his way, humble guy that is a gamer through and through. And that's exactly what Detroit's all about. We got that dog mentality, and he is a dog. St. Brown's an absolute dog. If you watch him in training camp, you absolutely love when he's going against the DBs. When we had Jeffrey Okudah, St. Brown versus Okudah was so fun to watch because he's so feisty. He practices like he plays. He legitimately will be out there and hard all the way through. That's how he practices. You got to see it for yourself to see what type of player he is. And that's why he's so good in the NFL. That's why he's succeeding in the NFL, and that's why the way he is. Because he legitimately is a dog on the practice field, dog before practice, dog after practice, dog in the game and out. That's why he's good. That's why he has been successful for the Detroit Lions. You got to see it for yourself. And these people, they got to do a better job, in my opinion, to see this. Show some love towards players that are getting it done. Just because they're not a name or they're not got the size. They need to get the love that they so well deserve. St. Brown is one of those guys. Folks, we're dropping videos every single day. Make sure you check Lions Nation Unite out. We're taking it to the next level. Can't wait to see it. Subscribe, all the lovely stuff. Live 1 p.m. on Tuesdays. With that said, folks,